So this is how we are mounting this electric motor into this engine. Now, I made it to where once we get this to size, this will fit in here, and therefore I can weld on all the corners possible to make sure this thing is nice and strong. Now, I cut it oversized because once we drill the hole in this for the electric motor to fit onto, we need to fine-tune the exact placement of where the electric motor is. So therefore, once I weld this in place, we can make sure that this still fits on here and has a bit of a gap between this and the electric motor. So now, I was going to use my arc droid to cut the hole for this, but I remember last time I used that thing to try and cut 3/8 thick aluminum. It just wasn't strong enough. The plasma cutter that I have, it's only 50 amps, so it's not strong enough to cut through this aluminum. So let's either put this in the vertical mill, or I almost wonder if this will fit in the lathe. It'll be a lot faster in the lathe. Let's see if this will fit in the 4-jaw chuck for the lathe. So we need to clock this electric motor in such a way that the holes that we need to drill next in the aluminum plate to be able to mount this electric motor onto this aluminum plate, we need to make sure that they are not in the way of the hole that we need to drill to be able to mount the gear roughly right there. So I marked with a Sharpie all the spots on the electric motor where there are bolt holes, and we just need to make sure that these two are roughly in the middle of where the gear's gonna have to go, roughly right there. So also I calculated the height difference between this aluminum plate and this, so therefore we can get the gear on the clutch basket and the gear on the electric motor at the exact same height of each other, and that difference is 0.255. So once I drill the holes in this aluminum plate, then I can put this thing in a jig so where they are perfectly flat, perfectly level, and height difference of 0.255, and then I can tack this onto here. So, I bought a brand new TIG torch because I'm still having weird porosity issues, and I've honestly tried everything I can think of. Nothing seems to solve it, so I bought a brand new torch in case this is the problem. So honestly, the only thing I actually haven't tried is using bigger cups. I actually haven't tried that, so... But yeah, I bought a new torch just in case this is the problem. Because I've honestly tried every single thing I can think of to try and get rid of any porosity issues. And even on a completely clean piece of steel, it still has porosity. So I know it's some type of issue with shielding gas. So I bought a brand new torch in case this one's broken or cracked or leaking or anything. I don't know. Hopefully this will solve the issue. Nice! Nice! I just ran 5 different passes, all in different temperatures, and no porosity issues. Awesome. Yeah, it seems like the new torch seems to be working. I don't know why the old torch would have caused porosity issues, but the new one's working. No porosity issues, so that is awesome. Alright, here goes nothing. Hopefully this is weldable and hopefully I don't mess this up. I tried cleaning it as best as I could, and I will preheat it with a torch as well as burn off any extra whatever that's on there, so wish me luck. Yeah, holy crap, that was a bit challenging. Luckily it wasn't any really bad porosity. There was some slight porosity, but it was mainly just trying to weld thick to thin, and the thin being the cast aluminum. Welding cast aluminum is tricky in itself. We're trying to weld a thick piece of aluminum to the thin cast aluminum without trying to melt out too much and, you know, get rid of the sealing surface for the gasket, which I wasn't able to. I kind of melted away a lot of it, but I built it back up with aluminum. And then once because I'm also going to have to weld a 1/4 inch band around all this to build it up, so therefore it's the same height as the sealing surface. Then we're going to surface this whole thing to fit the gaskets, so I'll just be able to surface it back down to this exact height for everything. But yeah, I eventually got it. It was a bit tricky, but I was able to get it to work, and it should be strong enough. Now, I was going to start working on getting this cut to size and then welded in place right here. This is obviously how we are covering all these giant gaping holes right here. But before we do that, let's actually cut it for this size, because we need to get them aligned perfectly. It's going to be easier to align it before, you know, welding this in place. So let's figure out exactly where to cut it. And this one, we'll put this one in the mill and do the same thing we did with this to this one. And then I can cut this to size and weld it in place on this one as well as this one. Yeah, that is a lot of material we had to remove to make room for this electric motor. Now, the alignment's not perfect. It's off by just a tiny little bit on the bottom, but you know what? I think it's fine. It's good enough. So let's start working on modifying this to fit into here, just like that. Obviously, this is way oversized. I'm gonna have to cut it to size. Half of this will be used for this half of the engine case. The other half will be used for the other engine case, and we obviously have to have it split down the middle, so therefore we can still take it apart and everything. And I'm probably gonna have to put a piece of aluminum over this, which is what used to be where the stator went. So we don't need that anymore. So I'll probably just cover this with aluminum. So, I've been looking at this and realizing how transmission's here, oil's gonna be into here, and transmission while spinning, oil's gonna be splashing around, and there's this area right here. Can you guys see it? Kind of. It's open on the very top, and it's like a little chamber. I'm not sure if it's like a vent or something. I'm not really sure what this is, but I'm realizing how once we weld this in place, the seal right here between this aluminum and this right here isn't going to be that great, and there will be a little bit of oil that seeps through here and then just pools up right in here. We don't want that. We don't want oil pooling up right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a small hole right here to allow the oil to drain back into the transmission. There goes the breaker. Yeah, with the welder on 110, it's just not hot enough to be able to fully melt out this 3/8 plate. I'm trying to weld 3/8 to 1/4 inch, and it's just, I can't get it hot enough. I cranked it up to 130 amps, but if you do that for too long, it trips the breaker, so I may have to finish this tomorrow. Alright, it's a new day. I plugged the welder into 220, so therefore I can crank it up to 150 amps to try and weld this thicker part. So, let's see if I can do it now. So we almost got the welding finished on this. Now the reason I welded these blocks in place is because there's actually 3 bolt holes down here that, you know, help bolt this engine case together. Now I didn't want to cover them up and not be able to use them. I didn't want to figure out a way to put a cover over this so we can take it off and access them. So I think the easier way of doing this would be to just weld aluminum blocks in place, and then I'll machine this perfectly flat, weld a cover over this, and then simply take a drill bit, drill down the existing holes through the aluminum blocks, so therefore the holes poke up out the top. That's a lot easier way to do this than trying to figure out a cover or something like that, and then I'll just use longer bolts. So now let me put this in the vertical mill. I'll machine this thing perfectly flat, just this right here, and then I'll cut out a piece of aluminum that goes over this and then weld it in place, and then the welding is finished on this one. No. Oh, the weld broke. Dang it. All right, let me re-weld it back in place and continue machining. Okay, let's try this again. So, after many hours of welding on these things, I think they are pretty much done as far as welding. So, I'll admit, some of these welds are not great. Again, I was really fighting porosity, really trying to get some good welds on this, but there were some of them that were just not cooperating. Yeah, this material is not the cleanest, so welding on it was a bit of a challenge. But now, I left the pieces that we added to this, I left them proud of the surface that needs to be completely flat, so therefore once we bolt this stuff together, it'll seal it properly and everything, so we just need to grind it down to be completely flat. I may just use a grinder on some of these to get them close, and then once I get it, close, I need to get sandpaper. I'll put it on an extremely flat surface and then just sand it until everything's completely flat again, so therefore we can bolt it back together and it'll seal properly and everything. So this side's going to be the hardest right here because we need to get all this completely flat with all this. So that one's going to be the most challenging. And if there's any gaps, if there's any cracks or porosity or anything, I may just fill it with JB Weld. So, turns out the flattest surface I have is this giant sheet of glass. Now, I went to Lowe's yesterday and I bought a bunch of sandpaper, 120 grit, 320 grit, and 1000 grit. I wasn't able to find the 1000 grit in the bigger bigger pieces like this, but maybe I'll glue 2 or 3 of these together. Now, I need to glue these down because I can't use them like this, and I also need them to stay put. So I bought this multi-purpose adhesive. Hopefully this stuff sticks to glass. It says it sticks to everything but glass. So hopefully this stuff works. Alright, I'm calling that good enough. So, we got these sides at least done. This one was the easy one. This one was a little bit harder because I did more welding and it was a tiny bit warped this way. So, now, next, we have to do this one. Now, I honestly don't think that this side would be possible using sandpaper and all that kind of stuff without taking hours and hours. So I'm almost wondering if now that we got this side flat, what if we just put this in the vertical mill? I'll make sure it's as flat as possible and then just machine this flat. I think that's going to be a lot faster. Alright, is that going to hold? I think so. Yeah, the alignment isn't perfect on this. It's pretty good right here, but right here it's kind of misaligned and a little bit up here. to do it. I was able to fit this electric motor into this engine case without having to modify this thing too heavily. Now, luckily I was able to get this basically where the cylinder head used to be, so therefore I don't have to heavily modify the dirt bike frame to get this to fit in here now. It's basically the same size as this engine used to be. It now just has this motor sticking out of it a little bit. So, but we are going to have to modify the dirt bike frame a little bit to fit the battery. Basically the top portion we're probably going to have to cut off and make it to where, because the battery has to go there. And probably I'm going to try to get it to where it fits underneath the gas tank. So, but yeah, now that we got this electric motor further down into the engine, there should be a lot more room for the battery. Now, next video of this project, we get to start machining the other gear that we need, as well as obviously we are going to have to heavily modify the other engine case that goes on this side that covers the clutch basket. But we kind of can't do that yet until we get everything in place, because I'm not sure how we need to modify it yet until everything's in place. So we kind of have to get everything in place. Then we'll modify the other engine case, and then we can, after making the other gear and heat treating and all that kind of stuff and getting the exact right position, making sure everything's lined up perfectly and has the right amount of backlash. I've been watching videos on trying to figure out how much backlash and how to space gears, therefore they're meshing properly and all that kind of stuff. So I've been watching a lot of videos, trying to learn how to do this stuff properly, as well as more heat treating videos. Also, that kiln that I bought on Amazon got here a couple days ago, and I fired it up for the first time yesterday, and holy crap, it stunk out the entire yard. Hopefully it doesn't smell that bad every time I use it, because wow, that smelled bad, and it gave me a pretty bad headache. So, also been buying a bunch of other stuff on Amazon to help me heat treat these parts properly. Mostly just a bunch of cleaning supplies, like denatured alcohol, and basically most of it is just try and protect the metal from oxidizing while heat treating. So I'll play around with all that kind of stuff, and also I need to start testing the metal that we're using to try and figure out how to heat treat it and case harden it properly. So I'll start doing that soon whenever all the other stuff I'm waiting for gets here soon. So anyway, next video of this project, machining the other gear and getting everything in place, getting it lined up, case hardening these things, hardening them properly, and then reassembly, and then modify the other engine case, and then this thing should be done. We get to put it back in the dirt bike frame and start modifying the frame to fit the battery. But anyway, that's it for this video. Thank y'all for watching. I'll see ya in the next video.